Content Introduction. Traveling through the ranks of young PhDs, being criticized by the entire internet for being behind the scenes in research at the beginning, and frantically writing 10 papers in a month. A prominent academic figure stepped forward and said, not to mention writing 10 papers a month, but writing 10 papers a year is all irrigation, all paper brushes, and ineffective scientific research. After being dug out, each article is hard power and has a huge impact. Shocking the entire network. When interviewed by reporters, Wang Hao calmly said, "I didn't specialize in scientific research, those were just insights from teaching students." Chapter 1. Traveling through famous schools for doctoral studies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After graduating with a master's degree, I joined an educational and training institution to earn a salary. With the belief of being a worker, I am brave enough to work overtime and strive forward. 10 years have passed. Youth is not here, greasy on the body, 8 abdominal muscles hidden by the fat belly, full of black hair, combed into the Mediterranean. The soul of 30 years old rests in the body of 50 years old. The small house harvested from the efforts of youth, carrying a huge loan of over 20 years. One day, the education and training industry collapsed. Salary cuts and layoffs are pouring in one after another. When walking on the road in confusion, a truck running a red light roared past. This is Wang Hao's life. At the last moment under the wheel, he looked back on his life and suddenly felt immense regret. Why did you choose to work when you were able to continue pursuing a PhD? If you continue to stay on campus for a PhD, perhaps you can become a lecturer in university. Be a researcher. Life will definitely be different. When his mind turned again, Wang Hao found himself standing on the rooftop, looking down at the interesting scenery and taking in everything in the busy campus. Then, he saw a foot. A suspended foot. He panicked. One foot is already suspended, the other foot is standing on the ground, trembling and on the brink of collapse. Suddenly, the brain went blank. A shout came from behind, "Wang Hao, what are you doing? Don't do it. The second life and death crisis is imminent." Wang Hao didn't have time to look back, so he gritted his teeth and adjusted his center of gravity. He pushed his butt against the people behind him and sat on the ground. Call. He gasped for a few breaths in fear, and the person behind him had already run over. Professor Zhou Qingyuan. A name instantly appeared in my mind. Zhou Qingyuan nervously grabbed Wang Hao's arm and said excitedly, "Wang Hao, don't do this. You have to be more open-minded. We all know that's not your problem, it's not your problem. If you die, they won't feel guilty. Instead, they will be grateful. From then on, there will be no way to verify it. You need to pick yourself up. Think about it, your parents, your family, you were just in your 20s. You're a genius, you've been around since childhood. Calm down. At the same time, a wave of memories surged in like a tide. Wang Hao was momentarily stunned. He took a deep breath and said seriously, "Teacher Zhou, could you please let me be quiet for a while? I have figured it out and won't seek death again." Okay. Zhou Qingyuan said 2 good words in a row, but still stood beside him staring at him, his hand still tightly gripping his sleeve, clearly worried that he would still miss it. Wang Hao sat on the ground and carefully recalled before knowing exactly what had happened. At this moment, he understood. He has traveled. Not only did he travel through time, but he also traveled to a genius. Due to his exceptional intelligence, he continuously jumped levels and was admitted to the prestigious domestic university Donggang University at the age of only 15. At the age of 23, he graduated with a doctoral degree in mathematics from Donggang University. A doctor in his early 20s, I dare not even think about it. Such an outstanding genius graduate has directly received the opportunity to stay on campus. At the same time, I was also invited to participate in a key project in the materials laboratory, which is the development of ultra-compressive alloy materials. My work is to conduct model analysis of experimental data. I thought it was a great opportunity, but after only 3 months, a big explosion occurred. Preliminary data analysis error. The initial data error means that the 3-month experimental investment has been completely wasted. Materials science research is a money-burning game, and the project of ultra-compressive alloy materials is at a critical moment of large-scale investment, with losses exceeding 10 million in 3 months. More importantly, data errors are a low-level error that cannot be explained to superiors. The predecessor was pushed out. One is that he is responsible for analyzing experimental data-related models, and the other is that he is just an internship assistant researcher in the laboratory, and he is also just a PhD student who has just stayed on campus. After the incident broke out, my predecessor thought it was his own problem, but upon careful examination of the job responsibilities, he found that there were no problems at all. So the reason is very obvious: there were issues with the initial data in the laboratory. He was just pushed out to take the blame. My predecessor lost his job as a result and was unable to continue staying at Donggang University. Zhou Qingyuan was a professor he met when his predecessor was a graduate student, and he was very appreciative of his predecessor. After learning about what had happened, he introduced him to work at Shihai University. A retired professor from Shihai University was hospitalized due to a sudden illness, and no one took over the courses he was responsible for. My predecessor came to Shihai University and signed a temporary employment contract. After arriving at Shihai University, my predecessor also kept thinking about the issue of experiments, and my mood has always been very depressed. Until the day before, the experimental question came to the news. It is normal for material research to have no progress for 3 months, but data errors are very low-level, so low-level that they can attract a group of netizens to criticize those who made mistakes. The country's money has been wasted by such people. Even data analysis can lead to errors. What more scientific research should we do? This is our research worker. A 23-year-old PhD in mathematics. The degree comes from water, right? From an assistant professor led by a prestigious domestic university, Donggang University, to a temporary lecturer at a regular university, Shihai University. In addition, experimental issues have become a news topic, and many people are physically attacking him on the internet. His predecessor's soul cannot bear it at all. Then, the more I thought about it, the more desperate I became. I couldn't help but choose to end my life. Fortunately, he crossed over. Wang Hao stood up, recalling. Zhou Qingyuan was so frightened that he was quick-witted. He grabbed his arm and shouted nervously, "Wang Hao, don't do anything foolish anymore." "Thank you, Professor Zhou. I won't miss it anymore," Wang Hao said with a sincere and firm tone. "I left Donggang University and came here, a new job, a new environment. From today, at this moment, I will start a new life." That's good, that's good. Zhou Qingyuan said as he forcefully grabbed Wang Hao's arm and walked down. After waiting to return to the office on the 3rd floor and let Wang Hao sit down, he finally felt relieved and continued to persuade, "I also read the news online. Those people don't even know the situation, so don't worry. The internet is like that. Don't worry, I have already figured it out." Wang Hao's mood has calmed down a lot. He has accepted the reality of time travel, and since his previous life has ended, there is no reluctance or regret. Now being able to travel to a prestigious university for a PhD and even directly serve as a university lecturer is a brand new beginning in both work and life. Zhou Qingyuan continued to persuade a few more words before discussing his work issues. "I'm really worried about your current situation. How about this? I'll take a week off from the Academic Affairs Department on your behalf." "No need, just follow the schedule as usual." "I really figured it out," Wang Hao nodded confidently. Zhou Qingyuan looked at him carefully, looked at him continuously for a long time, and finally sighed. He nodded and said, "Okay, I was just about to talk to you about the course issue. Starting from next Monday, you will officially start working. There are several classes of partial differential equations that require you to temporarily replace them." He took out a piece of paper and handed it over. "This is your schedule, don't put any pressure on it." Wang Hao took over and took a closer look. There is only one course on the schedule called Partial Differential Equations, and there is also a corresponding exercise class, which is distributed from Monday to Friday. The office was quiet for a while. After hesitating for a while, Zhou Qingyuan said, "On the school side, we are offering you a 1-year contract. This semester is a temporary course on behalf of Mr. Li, but there is still hope for you to stay. If you have actual research results during the contract period, the school will definitely consider it. You can go back and think about it carefully. The research you did before, it's best to self-funded projects." I almost couldn't say the last few words. He gritted his teeth and said, "So, if your research requires funding, just come to me. I personally support you." "Thank you." Wang Hao was immediately deeply moved. After digesting the memories of his predecessor, he was able to understand what Zhou Qingyuan meant. Now his contract with the school is a 1-year temporary employment contract, which can be said to have been signed only in an emergency. With a scientific research stain on his body, it is difficult for him to find a regular university lecturer or research-related job. A 1-year temporary employment contract is definitely not guaranteed. In addition, due to the presence of scientific research stains, it is also difficult to approve the application for young scholar projects under national and provincial funding programs. Those topics can all be applied for funding. He can only apply for self-funded projects if he wants to do research. There is no threshold for self-funded projects, and there is no financial support. In other words, he does his own research and publishes papers. After the project is settled, he submits it to the higher authorities and then incorporates it into his personal achievements. Wang Hao pondered and walked out of the office. University lecturers are a great job, but there is still a lot of pressure, especially in the early stages of work, and the results directly affect whether one can become a full-time employee. Returning to Shihai University as a lecturer, but only signing a temporary 1-year contract, in order to obtain a formal contract, and even to be promoted to associate professor, there must be certain achievements. Professional title, directly linked to scientific research. Wang Hao has a sense of uncertainty. His predecessor was indeed a genius, leaving behind a lot of research memories, but the extra memories only gave him a lot of knowledge. Scientific research is a cutting-edge exploration. Creativity, inspiration, and natural talent are all very important. Some people learn quickly, but not necessarily suitable for scientific research, while others learn not quickly, but doing research can yield results. This is a brand new challenge for him. Wang Hao recalled his past life and compared it to the current situation. His heart couldn't help but become firm. It must be possible. No matter how difficult it is it harder than 996? Is it harder than 007? Is it harder than waking up and going to work or sleeping after work? No problem. His heart couldn't help but become firm. Suddenly, a voice rang out, "Professor X's system has been activated. Personal module, enabled. Task module, enabled." Chapter 2. Teaching Gifts. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Professor X's system. Why not X. Wang Hao quickly went to the roadside and found a chair to sit down, studying the systems that appeared in his mind. Open the system. There are two modules in the system, one is the personal module and the other is the task module. Open the personal module. After issuing the instructions, several messages suddenly appeared. Teaching currency. 0. You have gained a new ability called Teaching Gifts, the gift of teaching, level 1, your explanation will improve others' understanding efficiency by 20%. At the same time, your explanation helps others to have a correct understanding and thinking of knowledge, and will give back 100% to oneself. Ability Enhancement Task, Phase 1. Publish 10 influential academic papers. To obtain the next ability, you need to consume 10,000 teaching coins. The Gift of Teaching. Wang Hao carefully read it several times and did a thorough reading comprehension before finally understanding it. Explaining can help others better understand, and their understanding of the content and correct thinking related to it will be reflected back. It looks very impressive. In the ability of teaching gifts, improving the understanding efficiency of others will definitely make his course more efficient. At the same time, feedback on understanding and thinking about knowledge will definitely deepen his understanding of knowledge, and may even expand to multiple fields. As the saying goes, there are 1,000 hamlets in the eyes of 1,000 people. For every matter, everyone's opinions may vary slightly. Being able to gather everyone's understanding and thinking, and filter out the correct parts amazing. He immediately switched to the first teaching coin. Teaching currency, there is a brief introduction below. Teaching coin. Used for oneself, entering focus mode to improve thinking speed, designated other objects to increase understanding speed. Current daily maximum acquisition limit. 10. It can help others learn and also put oneself into a focused mode, directly improving thinking speed, resulting in better learning efficiency and higher thinking efficiency. However, the daily acquisition limit is also too low, right? 10 per day. To obtain the next ability, it takes 10,000. Wang Hao thought about it and still looked forward to it very much. Teaching coins can increase thinking speed, and both learning and scientific research can definitely greatly increase efficiency. The gift of teaching can help him deepen his understanding of knowledge, explain to others, and deepen his own understanding of knowledge. Teaching and learning complement each other. He issued another command and opened the task module, only to find a row of simple introductions. Establish research and development tasks to gain inspiration, current number of tasks that can be created. 2. Creating tasks to gain inspiration. Wang Hao tried to understand, so, are D tasks related to gaining inspiration? Personal modules gain knowledge, task modules gain inspiration. With knowledge and inspiration, are you still afraid that research will not yield results? Wang Hao was immediately filled with anticipation for the future. He was not in a hurry to establish the task, but closed the system, intending to familiarize himself with the environment first. Strolling around the university campus, feeling the strong atmosphere of reading and the bright spring scenery, there are also men and women living in the small forests and grasslands. Unfortunately, it wasn't at night and I also lost a shiny flashlight in my hand. Unconsciously, I walked to the comprehensive office building. This office building is located on the west side of the campus and is the largest comprehensive building within the campus. It has a total of 21 floors. The lower 6 floors are all teacher offices of various departments, with computer rooms, teacher dormitories, and many vacant rooms on top. People come and go in front of the building, and many students come and go. Wang Hao's age was not prominent in the crowd. He quietly climbed up the 6th floor and pushed open the door of a teacher's office, comparing it to the office number. "Classmate, who are you looking for?" A female teacher pushed her glasses up and asked in front of the desk on the opposite side of the door. Wang Hao extended his hand and said, "Hello, teacher. My name is Wang Hao and I just arrived at school. May I ask which desk is my desk?" Wang Hao. The people in the office looked over and some couldn't help but whisper, "Is that Wang Hao? The one who made it to the news? A 23-year-old PhD. What a pity. How could I have done a project and made an error in the data? A basic mistake. I guess it's because I'm too young. I know. Professor Zhou Qingyuan introduced me to replace Mr. Li in teaching, and I guess I won't be here for long, just this semester. It's difficult for the university community to get along with this kind of problem. The female teacher in front of her was also somewhat surprised. She carefully looked at Wang Hao for a long time, then pointed to the position at the door and said, "That's a seat reserved for you over there." Wang Hao nodded and walked over, only to find that his desk was the worst one in the office. Next to the door. The people coming and going in front of the door will definitely cause some disturbance. He didn't care either. The last one to come must have been like this. The good place had already been occupied by someone. Wang Hao ignored the others and went to tidy up briefly before realizing that there was no computer on the desk, which made him feel very uncomfortable. The female teacher just now leaned over and kindly reminded, "You don't have a computer on your desk. If needed, you can go upstairs to the computer room to move one." Wang Hao turned his head and said thank you, then asked, "I don't know your name yet." "Zhu Ping, don't mind calling me Sister Zhu. I teach computer fundamentals," the female teacher said brightly. "Okay, Sister Zhu." Wang Hao and Zhu Ping said a few words, but didn't speak to anyone else. They continued to tidy up their desks, then opened their backpack and took out a textbook from inside. Partial differential equations. His course is Partial Differential Equations, and it is taught to 3 majors and 7 classes. Each class consists of 2 or 3 classes together, with 1 regular class and 1 exercise class per week, as well as course preparation, homework correction, exam preparation, and so on. It's still very easy. Compared to the workload in my previous life, being a university lecturer is truly my dream career. He opened the textbook and carefully read it, only to find that it was all in his memory. With just a simple glance, he could understand almost everything. There were many knowledge points, and he could also think of a series of extensions, transformations, and in-depth thinking in the future. With so much knowledge in mind and rich teaching experience, giving lectures is naturally not a problem. He looked at the content of the book while also thinking about scientific research issues. "I am currently signing a 1-year contract with the school, but the treatment is also equivalent to other signed PhDs. The doctoral lecturers hired by Shihai University adopt a 7-year contract system and are included in postdoctoral management. Those who reach the academic level of associate professors or achieve outstanding achievements in their respective disciplines within the 7-year appointment period can be included in the teaching staff. To stay on campus and continue teaching, research and academic achievements are crucial. My predecessor was a PhD in mathematics from Donggang University, and I felt that it was difficult to achieve results in basic mathematical research, so I hope to expand my direction. That's why I decided to join the Materials Laboratory project, hoping to combine basic mathematics with data modeling and analysis, and achieve certain results in the field of applied technology. I also read many books on materials science for this purpose. Other directions are not suitable for now. He cannot participate in large-scale experimental projects, even applying for a provincial-level youth project is very difficult. The best direction is to not spend money, Wang Hao pondered carefully, knowing where to start. Far in the sky, close in front of us. Partial differential equations. During my previous doctoral studies, I diligently studied an analytical problem of partial differential equations. Partial differential equation analysis is the fundamental content of differential equation research. Some mathematics professors spend their entire lives studying the analysis of partial differential equations, and the results of similar research are very small and rarely receive attention. In the field of mathematics, the study of partial differential equation analysis is still very meaningful because partial differential equations are widely used, which can be understood as every small progress that can reduce the difficulty of other studies using partial differential equations as analytical tools. That's it. After careful consideration, Wang Hao felt that it was very suitable because his course was about partial differential equations. In terms of understanding system abilities, explaining to students can also help him gain a deeper understanding. So teaching and research should be linked together, which may be helpful for research. He didn't stay much in the office. The official start date is next Monday, and he just came over to take a look without anything to do. After leaving the comprehensive building and wandering around the campus for a while, he went to the rented house. Because I came to Shihai University as a temporary teacher, the university did not allocate dormitories in a timely manner, but only rented a house in the nearby community. In front of the building door, two girls are walking forward. A thin braid with two dimples on his face, a sunny face that seemed to be smiling all along, the other one is short, chubby, and wearing glasses. They walked and said, "I have to pay rent again, I don't have enough living expenses." "That's no choice, the dormitories at school are too poor, one room for 6 people, it's not as good as my high school dormitories." "Yeah, this broken school doesn't treat graduate students like humans." The chubby girl spoke and suddenly looked at Wang Hao, who walked into the elevator together. She hesitated and asked, "Do you live across the door?" Wang Hao opened his mouth and thought for a moment, but still had no relevant memories. "My name is Li Qian, and she is Gu Yuyu." Li Qian asked brightly, "Are you living on the 5th floor?" 501, Wang Hao nodded. "I remember right, I saw you that day." Li Qian finished speaking and suddenly asked, "How much did you rent that house?" "There is a memory of 2,300 per month." 2003. Li Qian was surprised and commented in 2 words, "It's really expensive. Maybe the area is a bit larger." Wang Hao had an additional idea in his mind and continued, "The house I rented is 20 square meters larger and well decorated, with all kinds of furniture and appliances inside. Just like the new one, it's normal to be 500 yuan more expensive than yours. Teaching currency +1. The system prompt stunned Wang Hao for a moment, and then he heard Li Qian chasing after him, "Do you live alone?" He nodded thoughtfully. "Rich man." Li Qian gave a thumbs up, and the elevator had already reached the 5th floor. Wang Hao couldn't help but smile and shake his head. He didn't say anything and got off the elevator before opening the door and entering. Li Qian followed step by step, glanced inside, and was forcefully pulled by Gu Yuyu before reluctantly following her back with a grin. The two of them entered the door. Gu Yuyu turned her back to the door, furrowed her brows lightly, and said thoughtfully, "The house across the door. I saw it when I rented it, and I was very tempted, but it's a bit expensive and exceeds the budget. But it's strange." Li Qian put on her slippers and asked in confusion, "What's wrong? What are you thinking about?" Gu Yuyu spoke softly and said, "When he said it wasn't expensive in the elevator just now, I was thinking that the opposite door has a large area, exquisite decoration, and complete furniture. It's normal for it to be a bit expensive." And then he said it out loud. "And, in the end," he said, "the rent is 500 more expensive than us." How did he know that our rent is 1,800? After hearing this, Li Qian's eyes lit up and she exaggerated as she pointed with her hand, "Is this the legendary spirit of the heart? Yuyu, your destined Prince Charming has already appeared before your eyes. Seize the opportunity and take the initiative." She clenched her fist and waved forward, "How about this? I'll go directly to the opposite door and ask if he has a girlfriend." I'm about to open the door and go out. Gu Yuyu quickly grabbed her and said angrily, "Get out of here. What you should be concerned about is, why does he know about our rent? Did he investigate? It's a bit scary." Li Qian immediately reacted and covered her face with her hands, saying shyly, "It seems that when going out in the future, you should dress up better. What if that handsome guy isn't after you? *++**. At. Chapter 3. Submission of Project Report. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wang Hao immediately opened the system after entering the door, and the sound he heard earlier was indeed not an illusion. Teaching currency +1. There is an additional small prompt on the system. He carefully recalled that he had only said a few words earlier, as if it was a sudden thought in his mind. Teaching. What did I teach? Is it reasonable to tell them that the house I rent is a bit more expensive? He also realized the problem. Not only for the teaching coins obtained, but also for the content just mentioned. After my predecessor arrived at Shihai University, I only looked for an agent to see a house without even bargaining, so I directly signed an agreement to book it. There is no clear concept regarding the surrounding housing prices and rent. So, why do I know all of this? Definitely not in my memory. The gift of teaching. It must be the gift of teaching. Teaching gifts can provide 100% feedback on others' correct understanding of knowledge. Rent is also knowledge. It seems that system capabilities are not only applicable to knowledge, but also to daily life. To some extent, the content of knowledge can even be described as mind reading, but it can only be understood by others due to one's own words, rather than any thoughts or ideas. Wang Hao didn't even think much, carefully tidied up the room, and then sat on the sofa to scrutinize. The 2-bedroom and 1 living room I am currently renting have an area of over 100 square meters, which is significantly larger. It is still well decorated, and the built-in appliances are also very good. Living alone is indeed comfortable. Compared to the rent situation in first-tier cities, a rent of over 2,000 yuan is indeed very cheap. Small cities are quite good. Living comfortably. Wang Hao felt very comfortable and immediately took action, summarizing himself in more detail. Firstly, it is the asset situation. Money is very important. Very important. Very important. I checked my bank card balance and it's similar to what I remember in my mind. It's over 33,000 yuan, which can be considered a small surplus, not to the extent of a tight budget under the moonlight. The 1-year temporary contract signed with Shihai University does not offer a high salary, but ultimately it is also a university lecturer with postdoctoral benefits and various subsidies. The monthly income is also around 10,000 yuan. This salary is sufficient for normal life. However, as a renowned PhD and university lecturer in his early 20s, with only such a small salary and assets, it is a bit pitiful to have 1 billion yuan. Subsequently, there is a summary of knowledge. To be precise, it refers to previous research, unfinished projects, and influential papers published. My predecessor was indeed an excellent graduate, and during my doctoral studies, I published 5 papers in mathematics and computer science, as well as 1 material research paper. Among them, there are 2 influential papers, both of which are professional mathematical papers. One is about the mathematical modeling application of partial differential equations, and the other is about the research on the solution of specific differential equations. The 2 most influential papers are both related to differential equations. The predecessor did indeed have a very in-depth study of differential equations, and no wonder he left Donggang University with scientific research stains. Shihai University was also willing to let him serve as a temporary lecturer. In the understanding and research of differential equations, the predecessor has reached the top level. Wang Hao's memory of knowledge in his mind also includes a large amount of understanding, research, and thinking related to differential equations. The predecessor hoped to expand the research field by combining partial differential equations with other fields, such as topology, data modeling, metrics, and even string theory, multidimensional extensions, and so on. This is mainly because the analytical study of simple partial differential equations has its limitations. Partial differential equations are a widely used mathematical discipline, and they are used as analytical tools in various fields of scientific research. However, the study of partial differential equation analysis belongs to the category of mathematical basic research, and it is also very difficult to produce results. Just partial differential equations. Open the system. After careful consideration, Wang Hao immediately opened the task mode of the system. First, create a task. Under one thought, the task was already created. Task 1, RD project name. Common solution to specific partial differential equations, difficulty. B. Consuming teaching coins can increase the chance of obtaining inspiration points related to it within a certain period of time. Inspiration value. 0. The accumulated inspiration value reaches 100 points, which can be consumed at once to assist in obtaining the correlation between RD-related inspiration and knowledge. Task settlement, receive teaching coin rewards. Sure enough. Task assistance for inspiration. Wang Hao carefully studied for a long time and almost understood that there is an inspiration value in the created RD task. By obtaining inspiration, knowledge, and understanding related to RD, the inspiration value can be increased. Knowledge and ideas already exist in the mind. Inspiration value is a task side feature that can streamline the acquisition of content related to research and development. If you acquire knowledge related to research and development, you can directly streamline. The research and development direction is there. There are many ways to acquire knowledge, such as reading, listening to lectures, or most importantly, lecture. The gift of teaching can provide feedback on other people's understanding of knowledge. With a large number of people in the classroom, students often have ideas, which may bring a lot of inspiration. Wang Hao was instantly invigorated and wished he could walk into the classroom immediately. Unfortunately, the first class will have to wait until Monday. He simply opened the computer and patiently wrote the project application for common solutions to specific partial differential equations. At the same time, I couldn't help but ponder the problems encountered during my predecessor's research process. Memories are always present. The predecessor already had a research direction and made some progress, but the research only came to a standstill due to a few unresolved issues. Two of these problems can be attributed to the complexity of the solution. However, the complexity of the solution is not a problem at all. As long as a unified algorithm can be found, it's no big deal to create an algorithm program and use computer methods to solve it. It seems that his predecessor was a genius, but his thinking about research will also be limited. Monday. There is a class at 10 o'clock in the morning. Wang Hao arrived at the school early and went to the Science and Technology Department of the Academic Affairs building. He came to submit the project application report. The Science and Technology Department of the school is responsible for the project application, and Li Ming is not in the office. Wang Hao asked and found out that it was in the conference room on the second floor. He went upstairs to take a look at the door of the conference room, only to find that it had opened. A dozen or so people walked out with a thud. Walking in the middle was a woman who looked just in her 20s. She was dressed in competent professional attire, with her body perfectly contorted. Her shoulder-length short hair covered her neck, her big eyes moving, and her expression serious yet displaying a unique temperament. She is talking to the old professor next to her. Wang Hao glanced at it twice, as if she had noticed it, and also looked towards him. The two looked at each other for several seconds. Her eyes are penetrating, her expression is cold, and she looks like a strong woman. Wang Hao made a simple evaluation, smiled and sent it over, then nodded lightly at the other person. At this moment, a soft shout was heard, "Wang Hao." It's Director Li Ming. Li Ming knows Wang Hao, who also went through an interview when he entered school. Li Ming is one of the 5 interviewers. Wang Hao looked at Li Ming and said, "Director Li, I'm here to submit the project application." At this moment, the woman in the middle brushed past and glanced at Wang Hao again. Wang Hao nodded and smiled at her. "Come with me." Li Ming and Wang Hao followed behind the crowd and walked together to the second floor before entering the office. Manager Su. "The laboratory is ahead," Professor Xia Guobin said as he walked, pointing to the low building ahead. Su Yingxue looked up and asked thoughtfully, "Professor Xia, the person I just met on the second floor of the Academic Affairs Department is probably not a student, right? I just heard him say, 'Come and submit the project report.'" "That's Wang Hao." "Unfortunately." As Xia Guobin walked towards him, he sighed and said, Dr. Donggang in his early 20s is a rare young genius, but he is still too young. He made mistakes in analyzing experimental data while working on projects, resulting in losses of over 10 million. This matter was also on the news a few days ago. I heard that he signed a one-year agreement with the school, which means that Shihai University happens to lack lecturers, otherwise it would be difficult for him to find a job in the university circle. Su Yingxue thought for a moment and asked, does he do experimental data analysis? Is he a PhD in mathematics? Yes, it's excellent. Xia Guobin used very excellent as a comment, but his face was full of regret. The most feared thing for university teachers is to have stains on their backs. Whether it's personal life or scientific research, it's difficult to continue to establish oneself after being tainted. Su Yingxue pondered and nodded lightly. Office of the School Science and Technology Department. Li Ming carefully reviewed the project report. He fell silent for a moment, then commented, this topic is very difficult. There were two academic staff members next to them who also followed suit and said, fundamentals of mathematics, it's too difficult. I think it's easier to produce results through application. Our university has not produced any achievements in basic mathematical research for several years. That's how many years have passed since Mr. Li made achievements. Mathematics is better in the field of application. They are talking about scientific research problems in the field of mathematics. It is very difficult to produce results in the basic research fields of various branches of mathematics, and each achievement can be said to be world-class. The vast majority of mathematical achievements are in the fields of computer mathematics and applied mathematics. Li Ming continued flipping through the project report and remained silent for a moment before continuing, there's no problem with the project. I can pass any self-funded project. However, Wang Hao, I still have to advise you. He said seriously, the thing you mentioned on the news. He paused and looked up at Wang Hao, only to find that he was just listening before continuing, to be honest, it's a pity. But the school has its own considerations and can only offer you a one-year contract. If you want to renew your contract, it's best to achieve results within 1 year, and it's also best to have influence. I personally hope you can stay. Li Ming made a serious statement. Others also advised, yes, Wang Hao, it's normal for you to make a mistake at such a young age. Now it's only a one-year contract, but as long as there are results within 1 year, the school will definitely be willing to renew it. Wang Hao nodded as he listened, his expression relaxed. Thank you. I have already thought of it and will work on this topic. Partial differential equation analysis is my most familiar and proficient field. Moreover, I have confidence in completing this research. Li Ming looked at Wang Hao in surprise. Have confidence. That's partial differential equation analysis, a fundamental research in mathematical branches. Even top mathematicians in the world cannot guarantee to have achievements in similar research, can they? I have confidence. Okay. Li Ming realized there was no reason not to accept it and nodded, saying, since you insist, I will enter it. I will probably be able to check it tomorrow. Chapter 4. This is the devil, right? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Submitted the project and headed straight to the comprehensive office building. Wang Hao went to the office on the 6th floor and waved to the people he knew. Make a cup of coffee and sit down. Open the prepared lesson plan and carefully review it again. There was still pressure during the first class. In my previous life, I worked in an educational and training institution for 10 years. I never imagined that one day I would be able to give lectures in university classrooms and teach professional mathematics courses to students in the mathematics department. Think about it, I am still looking forward to it very much. The lesson plan was prepared the day before and includes the content of the current class. The core knowledge point is 1. Fourier transform method. The Fourier transform method, also known as the Fourier transform, relies on personal in-depth understanding of the content. He divided the Fourier transform method into several parts and intended to provide a brief explanation of the surface layer. The content of undergraduate studies is still very simple, just understanding the basics of Fourier transform. 9:30. Wang Hao went to the large classroom next to the third teaching building. Push the door and enter. He scanned the classroom and found a sparse dozen or so students, mostly sitting in the middle and back rows. There is only one boy sitting in the front row. The boy put his textbook aside, focused on playing with his phone, and even let out a silly smile. Wang Hao walked straight over. "Hello student, what is your name?" Wang Hao stood next to him and took a look, realizing that he was watching a short video. He then asked. The boy raised his head in confusion and looked at Wang Hao, by Qinggong. "Must succeed." Wang Hao raised his thumb high and said, "What a great name. Wishing you success in the future, just like your name." Bai Qinggong blushed slightly and asked loudly in embarrassment, "Who are you? Is there anything you need?" Wang Hao did not answer, but picked up the student list and looked at it from top to bottom. Class 2, Bai Qinggong. Check it. Bai Qinggong leaned over to take a look and immediately, with extreme surprise, looked up and down at the person in front of him and said incredulously, "Are you Wang Hao?" "Teacher Wang." "It seems you know," Wang Hao smiled. "You're so young, I thought you were a student." Bai Qinggong quickly explained for his earlier gaffe. "Many people say that." Wang Hao touched his cheek with his hand, smiled nonchalantly, and asked, "This is my first time teaching you. Can you tell me the specific progress of your class's courses?" He knows the approximate progress and has prepared lesson plans for the course, but there may be slight differences in progress depending on the class. Bai Qinggong immediately flipped through the book. Others also heard the conversation between the two and couldn't help but look forward. A few also leaned in, shouting, "Teacher Wang," and "Teacher Wang," in their mouths. There are still many people watching from afar, whispering something, and the topic cannot be separated from Wang Hao. Wang Hao's incident has made headlines, and they have also heard that he will become a course teacher. Although news is negative in nature, Wang Hao is still a renowned doctoral student in his early 20s, with a bit of a legendary aura. The students were all whispering, "This teacher is really young." I read the news that he is 23 years old, a doctoral student from Donggang. He is really a genius. But it's also quite unlucky. The experimental data went wrong and I lost my job. Our class is also lucky. We caught up with 2 teachers, one of whom retired early. Now, we can't find a younger one. Look carefully, you really look a bit handsome. If we talk about a teacher-student relationship, my mom, it's just a senior, it feels younger than me. Because you look old. Although Wang Hao has scientific research stains, it is only targeted at the academic community. From the perspective of an ordinary student, Wang Hao can be described as legendary. The 23-year-old Dr. Donggang is simply too scared to even think about it. What if you have scientific research stains on your body? Still a young PhD, still able to work as a lecturer in university. Even if you can't stay in college in the future, it's easy to go out and find a job. They are just undergraduate students at Shihai University. Shihai University is just an ordinary university, at most it is just a key university, and it cannot be ranked among the top 3 in the Northwest region. It is not easy to find a good job after graduating from undergraduate studies. Not to mention the losses caused by mistakes in the experiment, even those who want to participate are not qualified. The class time is approaching. Wang Hao sat behind the podium and carefully read the content in the textbook. This class is about Fourier transform, which is a widely used mathematical method. The main mathematical application is to analyze partial differential equations. The Fourier transform has many applications in other fields as well. For example, computer algorithms. Discrete Fourier transform is one of the most important algorithms in computers. Wang Hao suddenly thought of a question. Now it's time to explain Fourier transform, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of inspiration related to it. So establishing a research and development task related to Fourier transform will definitely achieve twice the result with half the effort. Yeah. He immediately opened the system and tried to create a task called Fourier transform. Failed to establish task. Fourier transform is not part of the development content. Failed. Wang Hao frowned and thought carefully, then immediately added a few words. Established successfully, start a new task. Task 2, Art D project name. Algorithm application expansion of discrete Fourier transform, difficulty. C, inspiration value. 0, sure enough, it's feasible. Wang Hao's eyes suddenly lit up, he lowered his head to look at the time, and then looked at the students in the classroom, feeling much more familiar. Many students stepped into the classroom. Coming and going, the flow never stops. Wang Hao stood on the podium, his young face, ordinary attire, and gentle smile all making the students feel friendly, as if he was lecturing to a student of the same age, not a university teacher. Many students couldn't help but think, Teacher Wang looks very easy to talk to. I usually skip classes a few times, just talk to him and he'll probably be fine. The exam is definitely better. I took this course. Wang Hao stood with a smile on his face, seemingly indifferent to everything, until there was no more figure pushing the door and entering, until the last student found his seat. He tried the volume of the microphone and spoke, "Everyone be quiet, class is now. Today is my first formal lecture since arriving at Shihai University. To be honest, I feel quite nervous. I spent several hours preparing lesson plans before. My name is Wang Hao, very ordinary. I believe many people know about it. If you don't know, you can take a look at the news about materials research at Donggang University a few days ago. The male protagonist who made a mistake and caused significant losses is me." Ha ha ha, many students below laughed and listened. They all found it very interesting, but they didn't expect the new teacher to start the course by mocking themselves for making work mistakes in the news. When the classroom quieted down again, Wang Hao continued, "Personally, I feel very uncomfortable about this matter. Let's not say right or wrong. I couldn't think of it a few days ago and almost jumped off a building." He said it in a joking tone, but no students believed it at all. Everyone thinks it's a joke. But life still has to continue, what needs to be faced is still to be faced, just like I am standing here giving a lecture. I cannot choose students, nor can you choose teachers. I just hope that all of you listen carefully and can correctly grasp the knowledge points and methods of the course Partial Differential Equations. You are majoring in applied mathematics, and partial differential equations can be said to be one of the most important professional courses. Whether it's for scientific research or anything in the future, as long as it's related to mathematics, it will definitely be used. Wang Hao paused for a moment and became more serious. As someone, I don't have high requirements for teaching, he said, I have only 3 requirements for you. The students in the classroom are listening attentively, and they all feel that if there is a good teacher who can speak well, the course will definitely be taken down. They didn't feel right as they continued to listen. Firstly, it is necessary to attend class and not be late. Starting from the next class, if a student is unreasonably late 4 times or absent twice, I will directly determine that they have failed, and I will also fail the exam with a full score. The second point is that students must listen attentively in class, and it is not allowed to sleep or look at their phones. If they notice it once, they will be deducted from their regular hours. If they do it too often, they will directly fail. Lastly, homework must be completed independently after class. If it is plagiarism, please do not let me see it. In addition, during exercise classes, I will conduct spot checks on individual students based on the homework situation, and may also have individual students come on stage to explain to everyone. That's all for the 3 small requirements mentioned above. Wang Hao finished his request very seriously, and the classroom suddenly became quiet. The students looked at his smile again, feeling like a demon's smile. That's really scary. How could they demand so harshly? Aren't they afraid of too many students failing? Wang Hao seemed to be able to hear everyone's thoughts and immediately explained the issue. Some students may think that with such high demands, there are definitely many who fail the exam. Indeed, other teachers will take on this issue, he said with a smile. I'm not worried. You probably don't know, the contract I signed with the school is only 1 year, and it's uncertain whether I can continue to be a lecturer next semester, but it's highly likely that I won't. So, do you think I care how many students fail? Wang Hao pursed his lips hard and continued, even if all of you fail the exam, none of you can pass. It's okay, I don't care. He is still smiling. The students in the classroom were all dumbfounded and filled their hearts with excitement. Where is this a university teacher? Is it a devil? Chapter 5. Fear of being dominated by teachers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wang Hao doesn't care what the students think, it is necessary to have high expectations of them, which is also his consistent teaching style. As long as students listen attentively, everything else is easy to say. Students who don't even listen in class can say they're not their own students because they haven't learned any knowledge from themselves. The gift of teaching is a feedback to students on their correct understanding and thinking of knowledge. At the very least, listen carefully to the class. How can you provide feedback on content even if you can't even do basic listening? So the requirements for class must be strict, even more so, and it is best for every student to listen attentively without missing a word. Wang Hao's powerful words not only intimidated the students in the classroom. The passers-by downstairs also stopped. Professor Xia Guobin was taking Su Yingxue and his group on a tour of the campus when he heard voices coming from upstairs. Su Yingxue stopped and smiled, this teacher is so interesting. Others laughed and talked, I heard him say he's a new teacher. Only substitute for 1 year. It's normal to have to attend classes, listen attentively, and complete homework alone. New teachers are rare, they are very strict. Xia Guobin thought for a moment and said, it should be Wang Hao, right? That Wang Hao just now. Su Yingxue said with interest. Otherwise, let's go up and take a look, listen to the class, and also feel the learning atmosphere in university. That's a good idea. The others were also very interested, and the group quickly went up to the second floor. Wang Hao finished his initial speech and was about to officially enter the course when he saw a group of people entering the back door. He immediately recognized Su Yingxue as the woman he saw in the Academic Affairs building. At the same time, I also feel inexplicable. Isn't it a trial lecture? Still auditing. The students in the classroom also noticed, and many people turned their heads to look. Xia Guobin walked straight to the podium and whispered to Wang Hao, we are the sponsor of the school's scientific research project. If you are interested, you will come and listen. You can give your lectures normally. Wang Hao nodded. He is very confident in giving lectures, but he doesn't mind having someone attend. With more people listening, he can provide feedback on more knowledge and understanding. The gift of teaching is not only aimed at students. I have been working in educational and training institutions for more than 10 years and have experienced every major occasion. With more than 10 people attending classes, as long as it does not interfere with normal teaching, it doesn't matter. In this class, we are going to learn a very important and famous mathematical method. Wang Hao picked up chalk and wrote an English word on the blackboard. Fourier. Fourier transform, also known as Fourier transform. The basic idea of Fourier transform is that any function can be written as the sum of sine functions. The idea is simple, but very profound. You all learned sine and cosine in high school. Let's take a look. The sum of these two functions can represent any mathematical function. With rich teaching experience, coupled with a deep understanding of knowledge and several hours of careful lesson preparation, Wang Hao quickly entered a teaching state. The accompanying prompt made him pause for a moment. Task 2. Inspiration value +1. Teaching currency +1. During the lecture, I gave feedback on many new ideas, which can indeed increase my inspiration. By the way, teaching coins seem to increase the chance of obtaining inspiration points. Taking advantage of the time for students to digest and think, Wang Hao immediately used teaching coins. Consume teaching coins, select, Task 2. Lecture, continue. Wang Hao's thinking did not affect teaching. He simply turned off the system prompts and fully immersed himself in the course, occasionally calling on students to answer. The course is constantly explained and interacted with students. In the process of explaining and answering questions based on knowledge, the analysis of Fourier transform was gradually expanded, making it easier for students to understand its content. The group of people next to the back row mostly regretted coming to listen to the class. Because I can't understand. Although it is only an undergraduate level course, it is still a professional course in the mathematics department, and most of them have no foundation at all. Even if they have studied it before, they have already returned it to the teacher. But there are still a few people who can understand and even listen with relish. The teaching gift has a 20% increase in understanding, and the effect has been demonstrated. Although it only increased by 20%, coupled with Wang Hao's preparation for the course and rich teaching methods, anyone with a certain foundation can understand it. Those with a little foundation feel completely able to understand and follow the teaching ideas. Su Yingxue is also one of them. She is a graduate of Yale University, majoring in business management. Mathematics is used as an analytical tool in business, and she also has some foundation in the field of calculus. Wang Hao's explanation was very detailed, and she could still understand most of it. Xia Guobin listened the most attentively. The Fourier transform is just a basic mathematical method, and what he hears is not the knowledge content, but the division of details in the course progress and explanation process. The explanation of Fourier transform in undergraduate courses only goes from definition to analysis, from analysis to covered fields, expressions, and so on. It can almost be understood as simply repeating the content in the textbook. Wang Hao's explanation is different. He starts from personal understanding and divides the knowledge content very meticulously, gradually advancing from shallow to deep, step by step, keeping students up. The entire explanation process is completely different from what is in the textbook. In addition, Xia Guobin also found that Wang Hao was not nervous at all during his lecture. With so many people in the back row listening, including his old professor, he still showed composure, which was already very impressive. Let's not say that for now. He has a very deep understanding of Fourier transform, and his teaching level has almost caught up with decades-old professors. Xia Guobin was very surprised. Most young lecturers in universities focus on research and writing papers. Lectures are just incidental work, and they can do normal explanations without reading books. Wang Hao is a young doctoral student, and it is normal for him to have a deep understanding of mathematical knowledge, but without corresponding teaching experience, he can speak so well. Do you have a natural talent for teaching? Unfortunately. Xia Guobin couldn't help but feel regretful. Teaching ability is not valued. Wang Hao continued to immerse himself in the course. He is very confident in his teaching ability and has been engaged in middle and high school education for more than 10 years. Teaching according to fixed knowledge content is not a problem at all. Middle school education and university education are different. University teachers rarely focus on researching how to teach, and some instructors simply follow the textbook to read, even equivalent to intelligent robots reading textbooks. This is mainly because the pressure of university teachers has little to do with teaching. Middle school teachers are different. The standard for evaluating the abilities of middle school teachers is directly the exam results of students. Middle school teachers devote their work energy to teaching methods and providing guidance to students. Some may spend time specifically guiding a student with the aim of improving their grades without affecting the overall performance of the class. Wang Hao has over a decade of teaching experience, coupled with a deep understanding of knowledge. Lectures are naturally not a problem. The gift of teaching can also help him think like a spring during the teaching process. Many new ideas, new directions, and unprecedented understandings will jump into his mind, which also deepens his understanding of the content being discussed. He fully integrated into the curriculum, as if not carrying out teaching work, but participating in a very interesting activity. The explanation is engaging and the content is interesting and vivid. The students are also very active. As the course continues, students' evaluations of Wang Hao have improved. Although the requirements were very strict at the beginning, the young lecturers on stage were indeed very skilled in their lectures. Of course, there were also some students who didn't listen to the class. There was a student in the back row who had a separate head, so he couldn't help but feel drowsy. He simply lay on the table and closed his eyes. Wang Hao noticed as soon as he looked up. After explaining a knowledge point and asking students to do an exercise, he walked over to his classmates and patted his shoulders a few times before saying loudly, "This student, wake up. Someone called you, it's time to go home for dinner." Ha ha ha! Laughter echoed from around. The students immediately lifted their heads and glanced left and right, suddenly feeling something was wrong. Wang Hao asked with a smile, "What's your name?" "Zhao." "Zhao Dai." "Zhao Dai, right. This is the first class, and I won't score anymore." Wang Hao pointed to the corner of the first row, "Just go there and stand and listen. If you can stand and fall asleep, then go to sleep." Zhao Dai had just woken up when he rubbed his eyes hard, feeling somewhat dazed. "It's a punishment to stand, isn't it, Teacher Wang?" "I'm already in college, but I still have to stand," he said. "What's wrong? Which rule is not allowed?" "It's not that corporal punishment is not impossible." "I didn't use corporal punishment, did I?" Wang Hao said innocently, "I just made you stand." "You have the right to refuse." "I abide by the law and won't force students to do anything." Although the following words were not spoken, everyone knows the consequences of rejection. Failed the exam. Zhao Dai glanced left and right again, hesitated for a long time while standing in his position, and then turned around to find a group of people who were just watching with a smile. He can only go over with depression. In the corner of the first row of the classroom, there is an additional student standing and listening to the class. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey, the effect is significant. The following course went very smoothly, even for students who didn't listen at all. Most of them pointed their fingers at their chin and sat straight pretending to listen. The atmosphere in the classroom suddenly changed. Some students who don't want to attend classes have completely different feelings. Listen to the class, don't want to listen, and pretend to be serious, afraid that the teacher on the podium will come over or suddenly call their names to ask questions. They seem to be returning to the high school campus, reminiscing about the pain of being controlled by teachers to study. Chapter 6. I am not professional in this field. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The course is coming to an end. Wang Hao completed the explanation of the last knowledge point, but when he stopped speaking, he still felt a bit unsatisfied. During the lecture, the mind becomes exceptionally active, understanding the content more deeply, and constantly bursting with new ideas. He always wants to keep going. There is always an end to the course, and he looked down at the time with a hint of regret, saying, "That's all for today's class. Next is the homework." Wang Hao copied the questions on the blackboard and then asked, "Who are the students in Class 1 and Class 2 who are collecting homework?" 2 students raised their hands, one of whom happened to be Bai Qinggong. He nodded lightly and said, "Bai Qinggong and Wang Buxue, please hand them over to my office before Thursday." After Wang Hao finished explaining, he announced the end of class. Many students just take a long breath and wish they had 2 extra legs to leave quickly. It is gratifying that there are still a few students coming to ask questions. Wang Hao dealt with the last student and quickly opened the system to check his gains. Teaching currency. 9. The limit has been reached today. Task 1, Inspiration Value. 3. Task 2, Inspiration Value. 101. I spent 2 teaching coins in one class, which is still quite worthwhile compared to the gains. Task 2's inspiration value, up to 101. At 100 o'clock, it can be used once. It seems we need to go back and summarize quickly. Harvest is not just about system data. After just one class, Wang Hao found that his understanding of Fourier transform had deepened. Some contents that lack memory, as well as connections with other knowledge, come to mind. This is better and faster than spending time researching and reading. Whether it's a good student or a bad student, as long as they listen attentively, there will definitely be some personal understanding, and they may think of other things. Some incorrect understandings are directly erased by the system, and correct understandings will be fed back to one's own mind. The greatest significance of student feedback is not in understanding knowledge, but in their ideas and creativity. Ideas and creativity can bring inspiration and perhaps become a direction for research and development. As the ancients said, 3 stinky cobblers can withstand 1 zhuge. Now there are hundreds of students, and it's amazing how their thoughts on a certain knowledge point come together. During the course, Wang Hao had already made up his mind. In the future, the requirements will be even stricter. Strive to make every student, even if they have a poor foundation and cannot understand, listen attentively to the class. This is good for them. This is a win-win situation. The course is over. Wang Hao packed his things and eagerly returned to the office. He also had many ideas in his mind that he had to record one by one. At noon, the office was empty. He first made a series of thought records, and then opened the system to view them. Task 2, RD Project Name. Algorithm Application Expansion of Discrete Fourier Transform, Difficulty. C. Inspiration Value. 101, Tip. 100 inspiration points can be used to assist in obtaining the correlation between RD-related inspiration and knowledge. Use. Wang Hao took a deep breath and immediately issued instructions to use it. He immediately felt that the ideas about Fourier transform he had obtained in his mind suddenly formed a clear sequence. He found the direction. Discrete Fourier transform can also be applied in the field of data modeling. The Fourier transform can perform overall operations and analysis of large numbers, forming a new modeling and analysis method. Wang Hao pondered carefully, sorted out the information in his mind, and then used a teaching coin. Use teaching coins to enter focus mode, lasting for 1 hour. Instantaneous. The brain seems to be awakened, and the thinking becomes exceptionally flexible. When thinking about the direction of thought, it is also easy to concentrate. That's right. He immediately immersed himself in the analysis, gradually expanding, thinking, and recording. Time has been forgotten. After an hour, the focus mode effect came to an end, and then I regained my senses. Looking up again, I saw several people already in the office. Some are resting on the table, some are playing with the computer, and some seem to be working. Zhu Ping exchanged a glance with him, lifted the hem of her skirt, stood up and smiled. Wang Hao, you were serious just now. What did you write? I just gave a lecture and had some insights. Can you still gain insights while giving a lecture? Zhu Ping joked, when I was teaching a subject, I was almost infuriated by the students. So, I used C language to create a calculator program for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. There were a bunch of people who didn't know how to do it. I taught it over and over again. She complained several times in a row. Wang Hao listened. Then he lowered his head and carefully examined the content. Considering that there was no class in the afternoon, he decided to continue his research. The people coming and going at the entrance have a significant impact. He decided to use another teaching coin instead. Use teaching coins to enter focus mode, lasting for 1 hour. Continue. He analyzed the applications and extensions of Fourier transform, and put a lot of effort into researching the discrete Fourier transform algorithm to assist in data modeling. The latter is very meaningful. Fast Fourier transform is one of the most important algorithms in computers, mainly used in digital signal processing, solving partial differential equations, and quickly computing large integer products. Wang Hao has found a new application method that uses Fourier transform as a computational aid to filter and model massive data as a whole. This method takes global data modeling as the starting point and can become a big data analysis tool, which can also be applied in other complex data analysis scenarios. Based on the properties of Fourier transform, he came up with 2 methods to assist in complex data modeling. Now is the recording, summary, and more in-depth analysis of the 2 methods. Soon. An hour has passed. Wang Hao still couldn't finish his work. He pressed his forehead with his hand and brewed a cup of coffee to continue working. Use teaching coins to enter focus mode, lasting for 1 hour. Use teaching coins to enter focus mode, duration. Discrete Fourier transform. Sine, cosine, input conversion. Big data modeling architecture. Data transformation. A pile of professional content fills my mind, slowly organizing the structure, then transforming, analyzing and connecting it. Wang Hao completely forgot about the loss of time until his shoulder was slapped by a small force. Isn't it over yet? Zhu Ping stood behind her curiously and asked. Wang Hao snapped out of his wits and looked up, asking, Miss Zhu, what time is it? It's almost 6 o'clock. It's already 6 o'clock. Wang Hao moved his arm, stretched lazily, and looked at the stack of things on the table, couldn't help but smile. More than 10 pages, all of them are achievements. Although there are only a dozen pages of content, it contains the main body of research, who has completed the Fourier transform to assist in the construction of complex data modeling algorithms. 2 methods, 2 outcomes. Expanding a new type of algorithm using Fourier transform is not a significant achievement, but because it is a completely new algorithm development, there will be many application scenarios, enough to be published in top journals, and it is a top-notch achievement in computer mathematics. Zhu Ping looked at Wang Hao's expression and the things on the table and couldn't help but ask in surprise, you haven't been studying, have you? At noon, I saw that you were in this state. It seems like. Really? You're working too hard, right? Zhu Ping stared in surprise. She can understand the focus of research, but after working continuously for an afternoon and completing a small stack of complex mathematical content, it's hard to imagine. Anyway, she can't do it. If you have some ideas, just take them down, Wang Hao explained briefly, then picked up the things on the table and prepared to go back to continue his research. Because it is only a replacement for the course vacancy, he only has 1 class every day from Monday to Thursday, and on Friday, there are 2 consecutive exercise classes in the afternoon and evening. He was on his first official day at work and felt it was not good to leave at noon, so he stayed in the office all the time. Wang Hao packed his things and prepared to leave. Zhu Ping was also about to go out, so she casually asked, "Are you going to eat?" "No." Wang Hao just refused, and a growl came from his stomach, causing him to smile awkwardly. Zhu Ping couldn't help but smile with her belly in her arms and said with her fingers outside the door, "Let's go, let's go. You just arrived at school and may not be familiar with it. Let's take you to a good place." The good place that Zhu Ping mentioned is the second floor of the small cafeteria on the west side of the university. Due to its relatively remote location, there are very few students coming to eat, and most of them are school staff. Many leaders also treat guests here. The 2 of them went up to the second floor and sat down at a small table. Zhu Ping wanted to order 2 dishes to treat a guest, but was immediately rejected by Wang Hao. "Sister Zhu, do you think I'm so hungry?" Do you still have the mood to wait for the dishes to be served? Then, I simply ordered 2 portions of beef noodles. Wang Hao ate a bit hastily, and when we ate together, it was Zhu Ping talking about gossip about school affairs, most of which was related to his personal life. Women. Wang Hao secretly said something to himself, but he just kept nodding, as if listening carefully, but the rapidly cleaning bowl bottom proved that his mind was still on eliminating food. At this moment, a voice came from beside, "Sorry to bother you, are you Dr. Wang Hao?" Wang Hao turned his head and saw that the suspected strong woman he had seen during academic affairs and lectures was standing seriously beside him. "Are you Su Yingxue, manager of Chuanwei Technology?" Su Yingxue introduced herself and then formally extended her hand. Wang Hao also politely stood up, touched her hand, looked left and right, and simply pulled a chair over. Su Yingxue sat across from her. She nodded at Zhu Ping and then said, "Dr. Wang Hao." "Just call me by my name," Wang Hao quickly corrected, feeling that it sounded awkward. "Wang. Teacher Wang." After hesitating for a moment, Su Yingxue shouted, "Teacher," and asked seriously, "You have worked in the metal materials laboratory in Donggang, haven't you?" Wang Hao furrowed his brow slightly. Although it only exists in memory, the metal materials laboratory is not a good memory. Seeing that Wang Hao's expression was not correct, Su Yingxue quickly said, "I didn't say that, and I believe that it has nothing to do with you, it must be for other reasons." Her expression was very serious, and her eyes remained motionless. "I came to see you because you are an excellent PhD in mathematics and have research in materials technology." Wang Hao nodded as he listened. "A very outstanding PhD in mathematics." He does not deny this. "Our company has collaborated with the Nanomicro Laboratory of Shihai University, and they are preparing to conduct a new study to observe the motion performance of particles of different sizes in high magnetic fields." She paused for a moment before continuing, "We hope to find a method for separating conductive microspheres in this study." Wang Hao scratched his head as he listened. "I have a lot of material knowledge in my memory, but when it comes to microsphere manufacturing, I only understand the principles." He simply asked, "So, are you here to find me?" Su Yingxue nodded and said, "I asked Professor Xia Guobin, and he said that your research in partial differential equations and data modeling is very in depth. We have a lot of information and data in our hands, and we want to find professional help to do an analysis. What we want to know is whether microsphere separation can be performed under high magnetic field conditions, and how high the upper limit is." Su Yingxue looked at it carefully and honestly. After careful consideration, Wang Hao hesitated and said, "It must be possible to do it. But the upper limit, this requires." Halfway through, an idea suddenly came to my mind and I continued, "In theory, charged microspheres can be separated at the micrometer or even smaller level through precise design. However, in conventional laboratory environments, only microspheres larger than 1 micrometer can be separated, making it difficult to meet market manufacturing standards." Su Yingxue's mouth opened slightly as she listened, her face filled with surprise. She furrowed her brows and asked, "Teacher Wang, did you also participate in the project of the nanolab?" "What project?" Wang Hao was momentarily stunned and immediately realized that what he had just said was not in his memory. This is just like the situation with the opposite girl. He only said a few words and learned about the other person's correct understanding, while Su Yingxue's correct understanding was already in her mind. Perhaps the greatest use of the gift of teaching is not for teaching, nor for gaining inspiration or knowledge, but for stealing secrets. Let's go. Hurry up and leave. Otherwise, how should I answer the question of the reason for being questioned? Wang Hao looked down at the time and immediately stood up. "Manager Su, I'm not professional in this area. If you are interested in partial differential equations, we can talk more about our expertise in microsphere manufacturing. I think you should talk to Professor Xia instead." He nodded apologetically and then hurriedly left. Behind me. Su Yingshue's heart was filled with surprise. She wanted to find a professional to help with data analysis, but before the data could be obtained, the other party directly came up with a conclusion. Just like what Xia Guobin said, Zhu Ping, who was sitting next to her, kept listening in a daze. She couldn't understand what she was saying and suddenly asked, "What is a microsphere?" Su Yingxue only realized that there was someone next to her. She briefly explained, microspheres are a necessary material for manufacturing screens and chips. The precision microsphere market is monopolized by foreign companies. Our company collaborates with the Nanomicro Laboratory and hopes to make breakthroughs in the field of nanomaterials. Oh. Wang Hao is young, but he really knows a lot. Zhu Ping sighed after listening with a vague understanding. Su Yingxue thought for a moment and said, "How much do you know about teacher Wang Hao?" "We have an office, and he calls me Zhu Jie." Zhu Ping casually patted her chest and smiled, immediately stating that she was the person in school who knew Wang Hao the most. The two of them were asking and answering each other. Got to chat. Chapter 7. Good ways to make extra money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Go home. Continue to comb through the research content. Wang Hao worked for another half hour and felt exhausted all over. He decided to stop and rest. Put on shoes and go out. Stroll and relax in the community and surrounding areas, and also learn about the surrounding environment. The environment near the community is very good. On the east side, it is adjacent to Shihai University, while on the north side, there is a small park. Bypassing the small park is a hospital, and then turning back is a spacious commercial street. Entering the commercial street, there is a fast food restaurant at the corner. Wang Hao touched his stomach and felt a bit hungry, so he went into a fast food restaurant and ordered a hamburger combo to sit down and eat. Fast food restaurants are doing very well, with people coming and going. While focusing on eliminating food, I heard a cheerful voice ask, "Handsome guy, is there anyone here?" Wang Hao looked up and found that he looked a bit familiar. Across the door. The skinny girl seems to be called Yu, while the chubby girl is called. What's that? I can't remember it for a moment. Li Qian quickly recognized Wang Hao and pulled Gu Yu to sit down. It's across the door, just sit here. After she finished speaking symbolically, she asked, "Don't disturb me, right?" "It's okay." Wang Hao carefully looked at the two girls and thought about it for a long time. Unable to remember the specific name, he decided to continue eliminating the food. The two girls seemed to be interested in Wang Hao, and after sitting down, they occasionally look over. Li Qian couldn't help but ask, "I don't know your name yet." "Wang Hao." Wang Hao said while eating. "You rent a house by yourself, over 2,000. Have you started working?" What kind of work do you do?" "Teacher." Wang Hao took his last bite of the hamburger and finally looked up. "Check your household registration." No. Haha, Li Qian felt a little embarrassed, "I just want to know more." Suddenly, it became quiet. The two girls waited for a meal without being idle, took out their books and focused on looking. Gu Yu pondered over a question and pressed his pen firmly on his forehead, saying to Li Qian with a worried expression, "Have you thought about this proof question?" Li Qian turned her head and glanced casually, "I've given up." "I knew it." Gu Yu helplessly covered her forehead. Li Qian sighed and said, "I gave up long ago. Now I regret it. When I was taking the college entrance examination, I shouldn't have applied to the mathematics department. If I hadn't applied to the mathematics department, I wouldn't have pursued a graduate degree in applied mathematics. If I hadn't pursued a graduate degree in applied mathematics, I wouldn't have encountered these complex problems." Wang Hao was about to get up and leave when he suddenly sat down in his seat and said, "Are you majoring in mathematics?" "What's wrong?" Two girls look over. Wang Hao was indeed somewhat surprised. In his memory, there were so few girls among the same level of mathematics graduate students at Donggang University, let alone those who were beautiful. At the doctoral level, the girls have disappeared. He raised his thumb high and said, "Amazing. It's rare for girls to learn mathematics. Let me take a look." With curiosity, he glanced at the question on the table and immediately understood, C, A, B, is an incomplete distance space in the sense of integral mean convergence. This is simple. Wang Hao took a pen and paper as he explained, this is a classic functional analysis problem. You need to first set the range of xn, t, column values, where n is a natural number. Looking at these three formulas, it is obvious that xn is included in C, A, B. For cases where n is greater than m, d, xn, xm, is equal to. If xn converges within the range of this column region, it can be proven that there exists x, t. Dot. Dot. From this, it can be concluded that C, A, B, is incomplete in the sense of integral mean convergence. After Wang Hao finished speaking, he looked carefully again and found that there was indeed no problem. He nodded with satisfaction. Graduate-level math problems are indeed a piece of cake for him. Gu Yuyu and Li Qian were stunned on the spot. They listened carefully along the train of thought, feeling their scalp tingling and unable to get around. However, the other party easily solved it, without even thinking time, to the point where it was as simple as copying an answer. This is a professional question at the graduate level in mathematics. Li Qian looked up at Wang Hao and asked again, "What kind of job did you just say?" "Teacher." "Teacher." Wang Hao nodded lightly and pointed to the dining table, saying, "It's your number now. Go and pick up your meal. I'm leaving first." As he spoke, he walked towards the door. Li Qian was busy serving food when she came back to see Gu Yuyu pondering, "What's wrong?" "I was thinking about what happened earlier. He's so amazing." Li Qian couldn't help but exclaim, "I gave up on that question as soon as I saw it. He actually wrote the answer directly. Don't you think it's strange?" "What's strange about it?" Gu Yuyu nodded his finger, as if he had transformed into Sherlock Holmes, and carefully analyzed, "That question is very difficult. The teacher has already said it, just try to think about it, and you don't have to do it right." But at a glance, he knew the answer, as if he had done it before. Even if you have done it, you still have to think about it, right? And he is a teacher. Even if he graduated with a master's degree, he happened to be studying mathematics. And he happened to know how to solve this problem. Is there such a coincidence? Li Qian continued to nod and react. "Do you mean that he knows our homework and conducted research in advance, just to find an opportunity to show off in front of us? But what is his purpose for putting so much effort into it?" Two people exchanged a glance. Li Qian said with a smile on her face, "Otherwise, Yuyo, would you just follow?" Gu Yuyu's face turned red and she hurriedly said, "What nonsense. If you want to confess, just come and confess directly. Anyway, I definitely won't agree. Cut, I don't know how lucky I am when I am in the midst of blessings. If a boy were to pursue me with so much thought, I could just get married in the same place. Is it okay to have a cave-in place? Get out of here." The next day is still a class at 10 o'clock in the morning. Because of the experience gained from a class, there is no need to prepare again. Wang Hao arrived at school after 9 o'clock and went directly to the classroom for class. As 3 classes were taught together, the number of students increased slightly compared to yesterday. Is it still the introduction or the requirement? Drive the light car proficiently through the process and remind all students to listen carefully in every class. Subsequently, the course began. This time, we still used a teaching coin to promote the acquisition of inspiration values for research and development related to Fourier transform. Wang Hao felt that the course was progressing smoothly and his mind was still constantly acquiring knowledge, but compared to yesterday's situation, it was much worse. During the course, he checked the progress of the task and found that the inspiration value only increased by 31 points. This number is definitely not comparable to yesterday. It should be a repetitive question. A single study must have an upper limit, or in other words, many students' ideas are the same, so they cannot bring new inspiration. But there has been a few dozen points of growth, and a lot more. The application research of Fourier transform has continuously increased its inspiration value, while the research of partial differential equation analysis has very poor inspiration value. Until now, it has only increased by 5 points. Probably related to the difficulty and relevance of research and development. It's about the Fourier transform, where the inspiration value increases relatively quickly. Partial differential equation analysis is fundamental research, with a difficulty rating of B. Fourier transform is just a method for solving partial differential equations. Wang Hao carefully pondered and understood. He continued to immerse himself in the course, constantly interacting with students, and interspersed some additional knowledge to make the course content rich and interesting. Those students who listened attentively thought that Wang Hao's lecture was very good, not inferior to the original, Mr. Fili. Those students who don't listen to the class 3 were called up to stand up, and one was half an hour late, so he was counted as absent and his name was recorded. Noon. After having lunch, Wang Hao returned to the office to work. He had already summarized the application and algorithm extensions related to Fourier transform. He plans to break down the content and write 3 papers for publication. Part of it is research on the application of Fourier transform, which focuses on exploring and thinking about solving partial differential equations. The other 2 parts are both Fourier transform-assisted data model construction and applied to algorithm research for data analysis. The content in the latter part is quite extensive, and even with further simplification, the total will exceed 30 pages. It is not easy to submit and publish in one go. That's why it was split into 2 parts for publication. In the afternoon, Wang Hao worked continuously for over 3 hours before taking a break by making a cup of coffee. The main content of the paper has already been written. The remaining work is to polish and modify the format of the paper, and then submit it to an academic journal. He also studied the issue of submission. The School of Science at Shihai University has a collaborative academic journal that can be directly published after being reviewed and approved by the school's editors. However, the rating of the collaborative academic journal is very low, only barely reaching the recognized level, and the academic field does not have influence. And influential domestic magazines need to pay a considerable fee to be published. Wang Hao decided to submit his article to a foreign magazine. Computer Mathematics and Information Engineering. Computer Mathematics and Information Engineering is a professional academic journal in mathematics and computer science, focusing on publishing research content in the fields of data architecture, algorithms, and information communication. In the fields of computer mathematics and algorithms, computer mathematics and information engineering ranks among the top 10 in the world in terms of influence. The most important thing is that publishing a paper in computer mathematics and information engineering not only does not require a fee, but also provides authors with a fee. Although there is only a symbolic 100 euros per article, having a fee is always better than not having one. 100 euros, 3 is 300 euros. 300 euros, 3,000 yuan. If you publish 3 papers a week, you can earn an extra 12,000 yuan per month, which is higher than your salary. This is also a good way to earn extra money. Take a look at Chapter 8, I already know. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the next 2 days, Wang Hao will devote all his energy to improving his paper. Firstly, organize the content of the paper and gradually translate it into English. Then, study the requirements for submitting to a journal. Slowly improving and perfecting, it took 2 days and more than 10 hours of effort to finally complete 3 papers. Great success! I have sent the paper to the submission email of the journal, along with a brief explanation and review suggestions. Then, relax up and down all over. It's a complete relaxation. Since his time traveling, Wang Hao has been busy preparing lesson plans and writing project reports. Later on, he has been summarizing knowledge and writing papers. Wait a minute. He has been constantly busy, and the important reason is that he is not sure if he can stay. Suddenly, becoming a PhD in mathematics, carrying a stigmatized scientific research stain, and obtaining the ex-professor system, staying in university is definitely the best choice. With the achievements related to Fourier transform, he submitted to top magazines and journals. It is uncertain whether he can pass the submission, but he is 100% certain that he can stay. Because the results have been achieved. Computer mathematics and information engineering has not been published before and can also be submitted to other journals. As long as there are real achievements, there is only a difference in the time of publication. The algorithmic achievements related to Fourier transform cannot be considered world-class, but information technology has high requirements for algorithms, and algorithmic achievements will have significant influence and practical value. This level of achievement can almost support him to stay. Even if for other reasons, Shihai University does not renew his contract, there will definitely be other universities interested and hoping to sign him. Friday. There are 2 exercise classes in the afternoon and evening, and the morning time is free. Wang Hao decided to take a short break. He sat in the office, leisurely drinking coffee, looking at the open news webpage, and chatting with others. In a few days, I also got to know the people in the office. The most familiar one is of course Zhu Ping, who graduated with a master's degree in information science and stayed on as a lecturer a few years ago, responsible for the computer foundation courses in the School of Information Science. Zhang Jiqiang, a PhD in information science, led undergraduate courses at the School of Information Science and worked in a computer laboratory for 2.5 years. It is said that he will soon be hired as an associate professor. Yan Jing, a PhD in applied physics, is also a newly signed member of the School of Science. She is a small person, only over 1.5 meters tall, with a braid and a thin and weak physique, giving off a cute feeling. She is only 3 years older than Wang Hao. Yan Jing and Wang Hao are both newcomers and the youngest in the office, so they are relatively closer. Seeing Wang Hao's leisurely appearance, Yan Jing curiously said, "Aren't you always busy? Are you so idle today? You even started reading news." "I'm done with it." "Has the research been completed?" "Have you written a paper?" Yan Jing asked curiously. "A paper is very important, it is a summary of the research. An influential paper is very important for improving professional titles and can also help apply for scientific research projects." Wang Hao nodded and said, "I have submitted my article, and now I am waiting for a reply." Oh, Wang Hao has been busy in the office all along, and others know that he is studying the application of the Boltzmann transform, so the specific content is not very clear. They instinctively thought it was a small study. If it is a large research, it is impossible to complete it in a few days. If there is a small research, publishing more papers can also be considered a small achievement. After listening to their conversation, the others also started discussing the topic of their paper. Most of them complain about the difficulty of writing papers. Zhu Ping simply gave up. She spoke in a tone of indifference, "You are all PhDs, and I am just an ordinary master's degree. What can I research? I just thought, just gather a few teaching papers, they won't look bad." Zhu Ping is the most enviable. She is a lecturer who graduated and stayed on campus. Due to her early working hours, the contract she signed was a normal work contract, which means she entered the system directly without any other mandatory requirements. Of course, due to educational limitations, it is unlikely to be promoted to a higher professional title. Others, including Zhang Jiqiang, who is said to be able to be promoted to associate professor, are only temporary workers for the time being. It is not just a matter of saying that one must be promoted or left. If there is not enough progress in a few years, one can only leave with regret. Wang Hao suffered the most, with a contract of only 1 year, and everyone thought he was unlikely to stay. In fact, the system of Shihai University is not so cruel because the number of talents that the university can attract is limited, and there are not many doctoral students who have actually signed contracts. As long as there are certain achievements, they can be directly promoted to associate professor. For example, Zhang Jiqiang. After working for 2.5 years, the horizontal comparison is relatively not outstanding, but after achieving certain results, the school is still willing to offer him a promotion in professional title and benefits. Generally, foreign PhDs who have been signed, as long as their performance is not too poor, there is no problem staying. The people in the office were talking about papers, professional titles, and curious about the situation at other universities. Zhang Jiqiang then asked, Wang Hao, how is Donggang? Donggang. Wang Hao carefully recalled and awkwardly said, I don't know either. I stayed on campus. Staying on campus, just like Zhu Ping, signed a normal work agreement directly. Doctoral students who stay on campus can generally be promoted to associate professor in the short term. Everyone immediately cast a pitiful gaze, and the doctoral student from the prestigious Donggang University became a 1-year temporary lecturer at Shihai University. How miserable! Wang Hao didn't have much emotion, he was not a first-hand experience, and Donggang University only exists in memory. A PhD student staying on campus. What's the big deal? As long as research and development can keep up, associate professors and professors can all be expected. While the people in the office were discussing, someone pushed the door open and shouted, Wang Hao, someone is looking. Wang Hao got up and went out into the corridor, only to see a person dressed in a suit waiting outside. Are you Wang Hao? My name is Zheng Yaojun, recommended by Professor Zhou Qingyuan. Zheng Yaojun said with a smile on his face. Oh, Wang Hao agreed, but still didn't understand the other party's intention. Zheng Yaojun warmly pulled Wang Hao and said, let's go. It's almost time for dinner, I'll treat you. Wang Hao looked at the time. If someone treats you, you might as well follow along. On the way. Zheng Yaojun mentioned his intention of coming. He is an associate professor at the School of Science and has a National Research Fund Project 4, completely nonlinear partial differential equations, and has applied for a funding of 100,000 yuan. The province also provided a subsidy of 50,000 yuan, and the school provided a subsidy of 20,000 yuan together, there are 170,000. Wang Hao felt that the other party seemed to be showing off the project, and along the way, he only mentioned how much funding he had applied for the project in his hands. Of course. It is indeed admirable to have applied for funding of over 100,000 yuan for a basic research and development project in mathematics. Mathematical foundation projects are different from other types, with almost no expenditure costs to speak of. Project funds are spent on buying professional books, attending academic conferences, and other aspects. Anyway, daily affairs related to research and development can be directly applied for reimbursement. I'm going abroad to attend a math conference, Zheng Yaojun said when he found a seat in the restaurant. It will take a week this time, but there are 2 first-year graduate courses. I was originally planning to reschedule, but there were conflicts in the later courses. As you know, the differential equations class, missing 1 class, and accumulating later, puts a lot of pressure on students. I found someone else. Either the course conflicts or I just don't have time. It's a coincidence that several of them don't have time. Zheng Yaojun shook his head in frustration. Wang Hao felt a bit strange when he heard it, but upon careful consideration, he understood. This guy has extremely low emotional intelligence. Popularity, very poor. Along the way, the other party has been showcasing their National Scientific Research Fund projects, probably similar to others. I don't know how many times they have showcased them. Others must envy being able to apply for so much funding, but as a result, he keeps showing off to the public. And then, he actually felt that it was a coincidence that everyone else refused. Professor Zhou recommended you to me, saying that you could teach me differential equations for graduate school. Zheng Yaojun finally said, looking over with anticipation in his eyes. Wang Hao was seen with hair all over his body. He felt that he couldn't have any connection with Zheng Yaojun, and on second thought differential equations. I am worried that the speed of obtaining inspiration for the development of partial differential equations is too slow. When I feel sleepy, someone comes to give me a pillow. He hesitated for a moment, pretending to be in a difficult situation. This way. Zheng Yaojun gritted his teeth and made up his mind, I won't let you substitute classes for nothing. I'll give you 500 yuan for one class and 1,000 yuan for 2 classes. Well. Okay. Wang Hao nodded and reluctantly agreed. Zheng Yaojun immediately smiled and shouted to the waiter to add more dishes and order 2 bottles of beer to celebrate. A meal brings joy to both guests and hosts. Staircase exit. 2 girls were hiding and looking over here, it was Gu Yuyu and Li Qian. Gu Yuyu exclaimed in surprise, look, I knew it. He actually knows Teacher Zheng and even invited him to dinner. Are you inquiring about homework questions on differential equations? Look. Today he will arrange a chance encounter with us and then help solve the homework problem of differential equations. Li Qian nodded deeply in thought, full of envy, I thought last time was a coincidence. He actually managed to come this far to pursue you. Why don't you think about it, Yuyo? Gu Yuyu's face immediately turned red, and she couldn't help feeling a little pleased in her heart. She still pretended to have a disdainful expression on her face and gave Li Qian a white look. Get out of here. After speaking, turn around and leave. Chapter 9. Should be about confidence, right? You are listening at novelfull.audio. There was no chance encounter on that day. After the afternoon class ended, Li Qian and Gu Yuyu went back early. They were confined in their room, discussing how a chance encounter would happen. Li Qian suggested staying in the room, we won't go out, how can he arrange a chance encounter? Will you come knocking on the door? In the name of staying at the opposite door, treat us to dinner. It seems possible. She said, what are you eating? Hot pot. You must go eat hot pot. I want spicy pot bottom. She drooled as she spoke. Gu Yuyu also had a little expectation, but she didn't pay much attention and said, I won't go. I haven't finished my homework yet, and my supervisor suggested that I learn differential equations well. However, the problem of differential equations is so difficult. What are you worried about? Let him help explain it. Li Qian couldn't help but rush towards the hot pot restaurant. Wait from 5 to 7, from 7 to 8.30, I was so hungry that I felt anxious and haggard. Li Qianlai ordered takeout on the sofa. When the delivery arrived, they finally met Wang Hao, but they didn't come to invite them to dinner, they just went upstairs with the delivery man. Hello. When Wang Hao was opening the door, he saw the opposite door open and extended his hand to say hello. Then he gave a suggestion, how about eating takeout? It's better to eat at school. The small restaurant on the west side of the school has a good taste. After he finished speaking, he entered the room. Li Qian, who was just going out to get takeout, took care of Gu Yuyu and said with suspicion, did we guess wrong? Perhaps he just didn't plan to meet today by chance. Gu Yuyu thought with some suspicion. Wang Hao didn't know that the 2 brain-boosting Sherlock Holmes across from him had been starving for over an hour. There is an exercise class tonight, and he just came back. The next day is the weekend. The advantage of being a university lecturer is that there is almost no overtime, and weekends are relatively free. However, Wang Hao couldn't relax. He is focused on teaching work and hopes to do better, so he needs to carefully prepare next week's lesson plan. According to the directory of the textbook, Partial Differential Equations, next week's course will explain one-dimensional non-homogeneous problems, more precisely, solving one-dimensional non-homogeneous equations. He carefully reviewed the content in the textbook and felt that following the instructions in the textbook would suffice. Mainly because solving one-dimensional non-homogeneous equations is relatively simple. At the undergraduate level, one only needs to master the basic methods of solving one-dimensional non-homogeneous equations, which means transforming one-dimensional non-homogeneous equations into one-dimensional homogeneous equations, and then connecting them with non-point zero values to obtain corresponding general solutions. It is difficult to determine the corresponding research direction for one-dimensional non-homogeneous equations, unlike Fourier transform. However, one-dimensional non-homogeneous equations also belong to partial differential equations, which may provide some inspiration for the study of common solutions to partial differential equations. Wang Hao pondered and opened the task system. Task 2, which is the research on the application of Fourier transform algorithm, has an inspiration value of 73 points. From Tuesday's class until just now, there has only been a 72-point increase, which can basically be said to be not much. Moving on to next week's lecture on one-dimensional non-homogeneous problems is unlikely to provide inspiration for the study of Fourier transform. Settlement task. Wang Hao studied and found that tasks can be settled, and the position where he initially gave up the task has become the settlement task. In the prompt it is indicated that settlement task to obtain teaching coins. Settlement. He gritted his teeth and decided to settle the task, and the system immediately gave a new prompt. Task 2, Settlement, you have obtained teaching coins, quantity 36, more than 30 teaching coins. Not bad either. Wang Hao immediately felt very pleased. Getting 10 teaching coins every day may sound like a lot, but there are still some that are not enough. Class, use. One class requires 2. Reading, studying, and conducting research also require the use of teaching coins. If you earn 10 teaching coins per day, at least 6 will be used. However, when there are no classes on weekends, it is not easy to obtain 10 teaching coins. Previously, he only had 11 teaching coins left. With 30.6 remaining teaching coins, he doesn't have to worry about running out of teaching coins. Teaching currency. 47, Task 2, Settlement, can we create a new task? Wang Hao thought for a moment and decided to try to establish a research task related to homogeneous equations. Teaching, corresponding to research and development, the growth rate of inspiration value is very fast. Even if there is no significant achievement, it is still good to receive a certain amount of teaching coins. Established successfully, start a new task. Task 2, Art D project name. Deep research on solving one-dimensional non-homogeneous equations, difficulty. D, inspiration value. 0, difficulty, only D. Level. Wang Hao tried to click Abandon Task and immediately received a new system prompt. Abandoning the task requires 10 teaching coins. Do you want to give up? Continue. Forget it, D. Level, just D. Level. 10 teaching coins are still very painful. The low difficulty of research and development also means that it is easy to produce results, and at the worst, it can settle tasks and convert inspiration values into teaching coins. Even the smallest mosquito is still meat. Even the smallest achievement is still a result. Sunday morning. Wang Hao woke up early and went to the school playground for a run and exercise. In his past life, it only took him 10 years to cook fresh meat from a young age and become a middle-aged man in the Mediterranean. He doesn't want to repeat the same mistake, and it's important to keep exercising. I ran 1 or 2 laps. His physical fitness is not very good, he's just panting after jogging a few laps, but he's also a bit stronger than when he first crossed the river, and consistent exercise still works. A heroic figure rushed past. She ran forward rhythmically with her braids up and tight sportswear, her whole body full of a sporty aura. Wang Hao didn't recognize it for a moment. He ran behind and carefully looked at it for a long time, feeling a bit familiar. The figure in front slowed down and adjusted to be side by side with Wang Hao, shouting, "Teacher Wang." "Is it Manager Su?" Wang Hao turned his head and suddenly realized that he was wearing sportswear, with short hair draped over his shoulders and braided. No wonder he couldn't recognize him. "Body shape well, it's definitely good." He secretly praised in his heart and casually asked, "Do you also live near here?" "It's on the other side of Central Street." Su Yingxue pointed in a direction and asked with interest, "Teacher Wang, do you also enjoy exercising?" Wang Hao gasped for breath and continued to run forward. "Who would like to exercise?" "There's no way. If I don't exercise again, my body will rust. I don't want to be called a middle-aged uncle when I go out in a few years." "You're so funny." Su Yingxue pursed her lips and laughed out loud. "It seems like you're old enough. You're probably not even 20.4, right? And you?" Su Yingxue didn't answer, but smiled and said, "Don't you know? It's impolite to ask a woman's age." "I haven't been in love before, I'm not sure," Wang Hao responded calmly. "I haven't talked about it even once." "No." Su Yingxue smiled. The two of them continued to run circles in silence. Another lap has passed. Wang Hao felt that he couldn't run anymore, so he decided to stand outside the field. He was about to say hello and leave when he saw Su Yingxue following him. "Teacher Wang, don't leave yet." "What's wrong?" "I have something else to ask you." Su Yingxue became more serious. "Last time at the restaurant, we talked about the cooperation between our company and the nano-micro laboratory. Do you think it's worth investing in the research of high magnetic field separation microspheres?" This. Wang Hao listened and wanted to leave quickly. How could he know if the research was worth investing in? He reiterated, "Manager Su, regarding your question, as I mentioned, you should find a professional." "Teacher Wang, you are very professional," Su Yingxue said with certainty. "I have some experimental data related to other institutions on hand. Can you help me establish a mathematical model and conduct an analysis?" Mathematical model analysis is a very professional problem, and mathematical analysis in materials science requires talents who are proficient in both mathematics and materials science. Relatively speaking, it places more emphasis on mathematics. Similar analysis may yield different results for different individuals. This is a difficult problem to determine. Wang Hao can also understand Su Yingxue's meaning. He feels a headache about this kind of work, and doing analysis will not bring any benefits. The analysis conclusions are beneficial to the nano-micro laboratory. What if the research does not yield results? Is it unfavorable for the nano-micro laboratory? Professor Xia Guobin is likely to blame him for breaking the agreed-upon large research and development sponsorship. He simply said, "Well, I've been very busy lately. I'll take a look for you when I have time in the future." "Okay." Su Yingxue stared at Wang Hao, lightly pursing her lips and nodding forcefully. Wang Hao quickly left. "Do you have time?" "Sorry, I will never have time and will keep busy." "Behind me." Su Yingxue's eyes were full of curiosity. She naturally knew that Wang Hao was evading and didn't want to help with the analysis. In fact, she approached Wang Hao for two reasons. One was to conduct data analysis and hope to draw other conclusions. Also, it's just curiosity. She always thinks Wang Hao is very unusual. Ordinary people, with the experience of Wang Hao, cannot be said to be in a slump. Even if their personality is positive, they will definitely be in a state of decline for a long time. Wang Hao seems not to have been affected. The confident gaze, performance during class, and the humor just now indicate that he doesn't care about what happened. Why? In Su Yingshua's mind, she couldn't help but recall the first time she met in the hallway, and the corner of her mouth couldn't help but pursed. It should be confidence, right? Perhaps he can draw very meaningful conclusions. Chapter 10. This Wang Hao is amazing. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The Pitch Black Night. American, California, Southern San Francisco Bay Area, Stanford University. The second floor of an office building is still illuminated. Professor Brian Dweck, with gray hair, stared at the computer screen with a lively expression. He looked up at the time. It was already past 10 o'clock in the evening, and continued to look at the screen nonchalantly, constantly recording and calculating with his pen. He is reviewing the paper. As a collaborative reviewer for computer mathematics and information engineering, Brian Dweck is very conscientious and enjoys reviewing papers because he always gets to see novel developments and ideas. Just like now. The Fourier transform assists in constructing data models and is used as an algorithm for data analysis. 1 application paper, 2 algorithm architecture papers. I submitted 3 articles. When Dweck saw the manuscript sent by the editorial department, he had a very absurd feeling, not just about the content of the paper, but because there were too many papers. 1 author, 3 papers submitted. After carefully reviewing the contents of 3 papers, he finally realized why the other party submitted 3 drafts. One of the papers was about the algorithm application of Fourier transform, which can be understood as expanding thinking and explaining algorithm applications. The other 2 are purely algorithmic methods for constructing data models, which are solid research in the field of applying Fourier transform to computer algorithms. 3 papers were completed together, and their content is interconnected. The algorithm paper was divided into 2 parts. There should be too many pages. Dweck took a general look and knew the reason why the subsequent paper was divided into 2 parts. A regular paper submission with more than 10 pages is already difficult to pass the review. Those papers that publish dozens of pages in one breath are first reported to confirm that the results are true, effective, and very meaningful. After that, they may be invited by the corresponding journal to submit and publish them all. The 2 algorithm papers in front of me have been condensed and condensed, reaching 22 pages. After reviewing the narrative paper on the application direction, Dweck immediately became interested. He found that the author of the paper had very creative ideas, and some of the application directions inside were not even thought about. Upon careful consideration, there was indeed a certain degree of feasibility. Then, he started reading algorithm papers. The submission of a paper does not include all the content. Even if it is a computer algorithm paper, it only explains the algorithm subject and provides an introduction along the direction. The main content of the paper submitted by Wang Hao is the application of Fourier transform to the construction of mathematical models, as well as the method of assisting in data analysis within the framework of mathematical models. Even if only the general framework is introduced, its main content is very complex and not easy to understand. Dweck carefully looked and studied, and continued to use his pen to calculate. He studied for 3 hours before understanding the process of constructing a mathematical model. He brewed a cup of coffee, took a short break, and then returned to the screen, unable to help but sigh, what a genius. This algorithm can be applied to data analysis. The analysis of large scale data, the more data there is, the more efficient this method can be. Dweck rested for a while before continuing to watch. After spending over an hour reading the rest of a paper, I looked up at the time and realized it was already early morning. I didn't continue reading, but instead sent a message to the editorial department saying, "These 3 papers are very meaningful. Suggest publishing it together as the core of the current period." He made a comment, by the way, genius ideas. Genius creativity and research. It is a new application method of Fourier transform, which is very valuable for large-scale data analysis. In the future, it may even change the framework mode of high-end data analysis. At the same time, Wang Hao is staying in the small library on the top floor of the experimental building of the School of Science. This small library is only open to doctors or teachers, and it contains some very professional and profound books. Many books are purchased directly from abroad without even translation, because ordinary people cannot understand them and there is no market, and translation is meaningless. Wang Hao found an all-English version of Analysis of Mathematical Principles of Differential Equations, and sat in a chair, carefully reading it for over 2 hours. He found that the analysis of mathematical foundations inside was very in-depth and thorough. Reading can increase knowledge and also increase inspiration value. This book has made Wang Hao feel that he has gained a lot, and at the same time, the task of solving specific partial differential equations has also increased his inspiration value by 2 points. 2 points, already a lot. The knowledge scope involved in partial differential equations is very broad, and his research is also very difficult. It is necessary to prove the existence, uniqueness, regularity, and asymptotic behavior of expansions related to geometry, such as sigma_k, q. Curvature equations, curvature flows, and Monge-Ampere type equations. Wait a minute. Every little increase in inspiration value is very valuable. Wang Hao is not the only one in the library. Zhou Qingyuan is also here. There are 2 other strangers who seem to be a doctoral supervisor bringing a doctoral student to select books. Their voices are not loud, but because the library is small, there are still some sounds that reach the ears. Constant variation method. Non-homogeneous ordinary differential equations. Annotations. Wang Hao captured several key words, which should be related to the content of his doctoral thesis and a constant variation method for connecting non-homogeneous ordinary differential equations. This mathematical topic is not difficult and is suitable as a topic for a doctoral thesis. The 2 are discussing. The doctoral supervisor suddenly spoke up and said, "Professor Zhou is here. He is an expert in differential equations. If you have any questions, you can ask Professor Zhou." Zhou Qingyuan smiled and looked up. "You can also ask Wang Hao, he is not inferior to me in differential equations." Although it is an affirmation of Wang Hao, it is clearly a humble statement. This is Professor Huang Pei. After he finished speaking, he introduced a sentence to Wang Hao. Wang Hao politely shouted, "Professor Huang." Wang Hao. Huang Pei smiled and nodded at Wang Hao, then looked at his doctoral student and said, "This is Xiao Sun, Sun Jian." Sun Jian smiled shyly and glanced at Wang Hao a few more times. Zhou Qingyuan was an old professor, but he knew that Wang Hao's research mistake had been on the news. Furthermore, Wang Hao is indeed very young, much younger than him. Sun Jian continued, "I always struggle to understand the general solution of the Riccati equation when it comes to non-homogeneous ordinary differential equations. A bit convoluted." He scratched his head as he spoke. Zhou Qingyuan nodded and said a few words. "There should be no problem solving the Riccati equation, right? The difficulty in connecting the Riccati equation with non-homogeneous ordinary differential equations lies in the transformation and transformation. There is a classic Riccati equation that can be solved using iterative methods." Zhou Qingyuan briefly said a few words before asking Wang Hao, "Do you have any research on the Riccati equation and non-homogeneous ordinary differential equation?" All 3 of them looked at Wang Hao. Non-homogeneous equations. Wang Hao has the inspiration for solving one-dimensional non-homogeneous equations, and has also studied the Riccati equation. He simply said, "Conventional and standard Riccati equations can be combined and transformed normally to connect with non-homogeneous equations. Our research is usually special cases or those that are complex." He only intended to say a few simple words, only to find that inspiration kept emerging in his mind. Then proceed with the conversation. The complex Riccati equation is also very complex to solve, rather than a homogeneous equation, which requires some other tools and means. For example, Ode 45 can be used for numerical analysis by using the fourth dot order and fifth level Runge-Kutta algorithm. By using algorithmic methods and adding some conventional solutions to non-homogeneous equations, one can. Wang Hao kept talking a lot. During the process of argumentation, ideas kept emerging in his mind, and he continued speaking after sorting them out. He even found himself on the verge of completing a research project on solving the special operation of the Riccati equation. The three people in the room listened very attentively and looked at each other with different eyes. Sun Jian's gaze over was full of admiration. He didn't expect Wang Hao to be able to confidently discuss the solution and connection of specific equations in front of two professors. Moreover, the thinking is clear. Some of the content has definitely been carefully considered and can be described as research, rather than knowledge that can be seen in books. Zhou Qingyuan discovered that sometimes Wang Hao happened to express his thoughts, and sometimes the content he said was different, but equally meaningful. To put it bluntly, what he thought of, Wang Hao also thought of it; what he didn't expect, Wang Hao still thought of it. Has Wang Hao surpassed me in understanding differential equations? Zhou Qingyuan was very surprised. He has always known that Wang Hao is excellent, but even a genius needs to grow. Having been engaged in mathematical research for nearly 30 years, I thought I was already a top mathematician, but ended up being surpassed by a doctoral student in my early 20s. Huang Pei and Zhou Qingyuan have very similar feelings. Whenever he thinks of something, Wang Hao can easily say it, and he can also say other questions that he didn't think of. Huang Pei's face was filled with shock. This Wang Hao is amazing. No wonder. Even if there were scientific research errors that caused huge losses to the project, Professor Zhou strongly suggested that the school sign Wang Hao. I see. He's only in his early 20s, he won't be able to do it in the future.